And now I continue the discussion on the architecture of Fatehpur Sikri. In earlier lecture, I have discussed this the Diwane Am and Diwane Khas as treasury buildings, astrologer seats, and the Pachisi Court. And now the Khwabga. It is existing on the southern side, so southern side of this, you can say the courtyard. I have already discussed this Padam Talab. On the southern side of Padam Talab, this Khwabga is existed. Khwabga is composed of a number of chambers, especially two chambers, and it is a cluster of the chambers and cloisters. It is a three-storied, here inside having a chamber and outer having a double three-story cloister, while the upper cloister is provided the slanting roof built in the form of a khapral, On the eastern side of this structure, the main khwabga is existing. It is composed of two chambers, two rooms, and these rooms are connected with the two arches built in a stone. These arches are flanked with a niche. This is a arched niche, and these arches are put inside the trabeated formation. Inside the trabeated formation, and the corbelled brackets have also, one can also do, these are the pendulous brackets, and these arches have been built in such a way that it is accommodated inside the trabeated buildings. And these khwabga is very interesting, and it is built with terraces, pavilions, and screened passages. And inside these khwabga block is having a paintings, wall paintings, and these wall paintings representing hunting and fishing scenes. And in one chamber, raised platform supported on pillars was built, and which today are accessibly, since the wooden stair was connected to ground level. Now it is lost, and these khwabga is overhanging on the southern courtyard, and this khwabga built in such a way in front of it, on the northern side of it, there is a pond that is known as Padam Talab, and the right hand structures of the khwabga built three-story. It is the cloisters inside having a chamber. All three stories having a chambers in the center, outer having a cloisters, and at the third story this cloister is roofed with a slanting stones that is built in a khapral style. यहाँ stones are composed, यहाँ pillars are composed of base and shafts and corbelled, and shafts and a inverted pyramidal capitals. Number of the pillars you can find, and the main structure of the khwabga is embellished with a dropping eaves supporting on the corbelled brackets. Again, a portion of the khwabga, it creates a very important image. Now the square pillars have been used, and the base is simple, and these square pillars are towards the outer sides having a corbelled brackets, and the elevation of the brackets was too much to support the projected eaves. And side corbelled brackets are providing supports to the lintel. At the center, lintel is inscribed in a lotus. The orientation of the second story is exactly the same of the lower story, but here the pillars have been changed. The upper story is too embellished with the dropping eaves, but these dropping eaves have not supported by the brackets as edge of the lower building. Lower building is having a very beautifully inscribed brackets, and the upper story cloister um, uh, is built in a sloping shape, and khapral stone slabs inscribed in khapral has been laid down here. The central chamber is flatly roofed, and a cornice has been given, and above the cornice at parapet some designs inscribed on this. It's a closer view of the Anup Talab. Anup Talab in the center having a cloisters, though the central portion of there is a full-fledged cloisters in the center, and this seat in the center of water is supported by the cloister, but supported by the pillars, and the story which merged in water remain merged in water is formed in the form of a cloisters. And this as per some modern records, the depth of this Padam Talab is too much, but unfortunately it was filled during the colonial period. And there is a lot of adjectives have been used in the contemporary sources and in the sources. And the lowest story which remain merged in water, the pillars is square and topped by a capital, and the elevated form of construction was used. At the roof level, having a cornice above the roof level, a raising was given. This and the facades of this raising is inscribed with the some designs. Above there is a platform, and this platform was enclosed by the lattice railing. This railing is having a small pillars, and these pillars were having a dome type of the upper portion, and and the space between these two pillars were filled with a lattice and cut in some geometrical designs. And this is a very beautiful structure. And to approach this central courtyard of this pond, at the cardinal points, bridge has been provided, and these bridge were also get a support in between as it get a support of the pillars. And platform is having a seat in the center, raised seat in the center. It is a very interesting structure, but its mutilation during the period of the colonial period, which make us confused. And it's a view when this was filled with water, and on the northeastern corner, a small pavilion was existing there. This small pavilion of the cloisters and room is known as Turkish Sultan's house. It is very interesting building, and definitely if you study its space organization, it was not meant for residential purpose, not meant for pleasure purpose. It's a commemorative building having a chamber inside, and this chamber is having a cloisters on the western side as well as on the southern sides. These cloisters on the southern side built cloister is having a slanting roof, while on the western side cloister is having a roof that is at par with the roof of central chamber, provided with a very big dropping eaves. And interior of this structure is highly inscribed, and this low relief engraving makes this structure very beautiful. And not a single inch of this structure, interior surface of this structure is left without having any decoration. Now you see this is a dadu of the Turkish Sultanate house. It is having such a floral designs, and floral designs having some plants in between and some trees on the sides. And it was built in a panel. Panel is surrounded by the design cut in a geometrical design. Another panel that is also having a flowers, tree. Here a Central Asian tree you can found, and it is all all are inscribed and engraved in a low. These western cloisters and central chamber are flatly roofed and above having a railing built on the same pattern, having a small pillars, stone pillars, and between two pillars the stone lattice was used to build here. And this Turkish Sultana house existing on this place. And this layout plan is very essential to know the structure's location, to know the structure's location. Now, another important building, now we enter into a complex of the personal buildings. This structure is known as Jodhavai Palace. I know this nomenclature is faulty, but one thing is quite clear. This is a Haramsara building. And in the mid of eastern side, a gate has been provided that is projected outside. It is very interesting. In the center, having a traviated opening. This traviated opening is placed in a arch, and this arch, fringes of this arch, has been decorated with buds, and inside two pillars are surmounted by the pendulous corbelled brackets that in turn give the support to the lintel. And so far as this arch, spindle of arch is concerned, and in that a lotus was engraved, carved in the intersecting star formation. And this central portion is surmounted by arcade of 5 arches, where the central arch is closed. All other arches are closed, but central arch is opened and closed with lattice. This central part of this gateway is flanked by double story double story wing, and lower story is a alcove. Lower story is composed of a alcove, and this alcove is placed in a rectangular frame where the spindle is lotus. The upper story is a projected balcony window. This projected balcony window is supported on the brackets having a pillars, and these pillars were uh, surmounted by the corbelled brackets, and in turn supported the lintels, and above having a dropping eaves. And the roof of these balcony buildings are built in the form of a ball, and above having an inverted lotus, and the upper ridge of the lotus is provided by two finials. It's a projected balcony windows, and this structure became a very beautiful. And this gate, this facade is having a two both wings are receded to the back side at the 45 degree, and these wings are double storied, while the upper story is containing a blind arch, lower story is containing a also containing a blind arch. This whole structure is roofed by a at the roof level provided by a cornice, and this cornice goes down on the side up to the half of the elevation of structure. Thereafter, some parapets at the railing parapets were built. Parapet type of the design will built inscribed with a number of design. This gateway is uh, surmounted by two domed squared pavilion. On both are fixed at the corner side of this pavilion. This gateway in itself a monument. It never provided, it accommodated a zigzag entrance to the compound of so-called Jodhavai Palace. Compound of Jodhavai Palace is composed of a central courtyard on the eastern side provided with a gateway at the midpoint, and all sides having a chambers and rooms, but at the cardinal points double-storied buildings were built. These double-story at the cardinal points double-story buildings were built, and the lower story is having a cloister in the center flanked by two rooms, and these cloisters having a entrance from in the mid of the deviated openings. One can get enter into these cloisters, while the flanking deviated openings are closed up to the half of the elevation. And we have a very beautiful pillars here. Inscribed pillars all are surmounted by the brackets, and brackets gave the support to the lintel. Above lintel it is having a dropping eaves. Above dropping eaves there is a cornice, and the central cloister of the lower story is backed by a oblong room. The same orientation was followed in the upper story. At the backside, having a oblong room, and it is open towards outside, and three opening has been provided. And in front, especially in the exactly above the corner chambers of the lower story, above the corner rooms of the lower story, two pillared pavilion was built above in the second story. These pillared pavilions are having a three arched opening on flanking sides, not arched but taveted openings, corbelled, and brackets have been put in such a way that it looks like a arch, and these pillared pavilions are surmounted by the vaults, and this vault is surmounted by an inverted lotus, and at the ridge having a two finials. It's a very interesting structure at the cardinal point. And so far as the corner is concerned, corner is also conceived in the double story. Upper story is a chamber. This chamber is surmounted by a dome, and this dome is placed on a octagonal chamber. Meaning by in this Haramsara structure, at the cardinal points we have some buildings, and at the corner we have a second story domed pavilion, and it's a very interesting structure. Now you see how one can easily understand what type of the orientation took place. Generally, besides these cardinal structures, other portion is having a central arch opening, central tabiated openings, and flanked by two tabiated small openings. The structures are symmetrical to each other, and remain symmetrical. All the cardinal structures, double story structures, are symmetrical to each other in the decoration, in the symmetry, in the orientations, and in the constructions. Now it's a religious complex. Religious complex is composed of a mosque, a great mosque, and a Buland Darwaja in the at the southern cardinal points, and a gate known as Badshah Gate at the cardinal point of eastern side, and a tomb building of Salim Chishti there. This mosque is very interesting. It is having a the facade of this mosque is having a great portal. This great portal is conceived in the form of a half-domed portal and a bigger arch. The fringes of the arch is decorated with the birds, and its spindles are covered. Its spindles are inlaid with white marble, and the spindles are having a flown lotus. This whole combination, this central arch is placed in a rectangular frame at the both corners having a five-story minar, and cornice classify the minar in a story. Above having a cornice, above the cornice railing was built, and at the both corner minar was built, a small minar, and surmounted by the flame. And so far as the skyline is concerned, skyline and above this portal, five square domed pillared pavilion was made. And here the chhatri was used to create a skyline. And inside this portal, there it was built on a oblong plan, in the center having a arched opening to the nave, and it is flanked by two small arch openings, and it is built in double story. Lower story is consisting of arched opening, while upper story is from the half domed ceiling of the half domed portal. It is having some sort of the decoration, and now it is built in such a way. Inside, there is a it was built in the form of a cloisters. Pillars were organized in such a way, the central it is divided into a central nave and side flanking edges, and all these three are surmounted by the dome, and the central dome surmounting the nave is bigger in dimensions in the comparison of the flanking dome. All domes having a similar type of the crowning element, that is inverted lotus and finials. And this the height of this central part is so much that it hides the whole dome behind it. It's a pistak, but it's this pistak, and it's a Mughal pistak as developed under the Akbar, but it is more pylon than the pistak. And it's a Buland Darwaja. Buland Darwaja is a projected portal. It was built after the victory of Akbar on Gujarat. It is having a domed portal and a great arch fixed in a rectangular frame, and here the spindles has been inlaid with white marble, and spindles where the socket is also inlaid with lotus of white marble, and the molding of the arches is inlaid with white marble, and this arch is having a fringes of the birds, and this arch is placed in a rectangular frame, and rectangular frame is having a on both sides is having a seven so far as the skyline is concerned, having a cornice, and this is supported by the and 13 domed kiosk that forms the skyline of Israel, and on the both side having a arches surmounted by the flown lotus. these Buland Darwaja is having a two wings, three-storied wings. Both are receded towards inner side, towards the back side at the 45 degree. And lower story is having a arched dome, half domed portal, while secondary story is a three openings, while third story is again a portal, and at the both corner having at the both corner having a six-story minar surmounted by the lotus in a flown condition. It is a backside of the Buland Darwaja. It is a three-stepped structure and its height is quite considerable. So this structure has to face a air thrust, and that's why at the rear side this structure was built in a three steps. So this structure was made to bear the burden to face the thrust of the water. And here we have a three-story. The lower story is also having a skyline of the Chhatri, and here domed square pillar pavilion were built. And above the second story is having a domed square pavilion at the corner, while the top story is having a three domed pavilions where the center is formed in the Baradwari having a three openings on each side, while it is flanked by octagonal domed pillared pavilion on both sides. This structure is having a decoration on the outer face with the panels, and here the different color like buff color and sometimes white marble was also used to inlay also to emphasize the structure. It is a Panch Mahal, a pyramidal five-story building. It is built on a pillars, and each story is having a pillar constructions and aviated openings. And four-story slowly and gradually receded to the inner side, and it ultimately the fifth story is built in the form of a domed square pillared pavilion. This structure, as per the some scholars, this structure is used for the pleasure purpose, while some scholars are of the opinion it's a badgir and it is a structure that trap the air and provide a cooling system. And it's a cloisters of the uh, mosque compound, and it's a small structure of the tomb of Shaykh Salim Sisi. It is totally built in white marble, composing a central chamber surrounded by the cloisters. On the southern side, this cloister has been given an entrance, while on the other sides, it is closed with lattice work. And it is having a very iconic serpent brackets. Again, it is inspired by the Gujarat architecture. At the roof level, this structure is having a dropping eaves on all sides. The central chamber is surmounted by a dome, and the whole structure is based on a raised plane, is situated on a raised platform. Another is it's a Birbal house. It's a building of the red sandstone and double-storied building. Upper story having is composed of two chambers, and both chambers are surmounted by the circular dome based on the octagonal pillar. While lower story above the brackets, the dropping eaves have been built, and one chamber of this structure is having a one chamber is having a waltz. And Birbal, so its presence is very intrigued because in the Haramsara campus, no male member was allowed to live. I think this is a commemorative structure built for some commemoration of the events or some for persons, and it is a very interesting building in itself. It is having a full-fledged monument and inscribed, each and every part inscribed in such a way it created an aesthetic sense architecturally, and it is situated on a raised platform. And now I conclude this lecture. Thank you very much.